Let us talk a little bit about how the banking industry has to evolve in the aftermath of this crisis. Malaysia is a very capital-intensive country today, and it's also, among emerging countries, a very sophisticated country with a very strong domestic marketplace. So transmission of capital is a very important and a very sensitive part of your equation. What would you say in terms of some of the recommendations that are coming on stream in terms of regulating financial institutions?
Yes, well, there's a wide range of recommendations that have been made by different groups from even the private sector, like IIF have submitted, and then the Financial Stability Forum, right, and others have made submissions. And there's some degree of agreement, not necessarily consensus, but on the areas that, like the degree of leverage, the liquidity aspect, and then the regulatory capture of the non-regulated institutions.
Right.
Then the degree of transparency and disclosure, particularly in the liquidity aspect, right, of it as well. And these, I believe, are all moving in the right direction. Okay. Because there needs to be a regulatory reform if we are going to have financial stability. The current existing regulatory regime does not capture, there are so many gaps, and it's led to weaknesses. But it's not just the regulatory regime, but also the supervisory oversight, and to detect very early on the weaknesses.
Right.
Identifying the
so
risks.
early warning signal.
Yeah, identifying the risks, okay, and then looking at the interconnectedness of markets, institutions, and so on. And then it's not only within jurisdictions, but also within a jurisdiction, the coordination between the different regulators in some countries is highly fragmented, and then across jurisdictions.
Right.
So I think in the new architecture, coordination is
key.
Very key.
There's been some efforts at coordination, mostly on a bilateral basis within, yes, the Asian environment, within, yes, Japan and several countries, between the ASEAN countries in terms of the bilateral swap agreements, for example. Would you say that those are effective?
I'd like to say that, and this is not very well known, that Asia has come together. I mean, during the last crisis, each one of us dealt with the problems individually, but the region has come together now, and we have a blueprint of areas of collaboration. There's greater strategic focus and well-defined objectives that we want to achieve. We have in place now a Monetary and Financial Stability Committee that has been meeting now for 2 years. And this committee is mandated, is among central banks at the deputy governor's level, and it looks at identifies risks and vulnerabilities that may emerge in, right, the region.
But is that committee backed by the availability of funds to respond to crisis?
Well, that is the other aspect, that it has also developed a integrated crisis management framework, and part of it is a facility that would provide emergency liquidity, right, assistance.
Did it come to any point of being tested in this global?
No, because our region is not confronted with a financial crisis.
Right.
None of the countries in this region is confronted with financial crises, and there've been adequate liquidity, right, in our systems.
Right. Do you think that the new Financial Stability Board is representative? And what does representativeness mean to you?
Right. Well, previously it comprised of the G7, and now it's been extended to include the G20. The basis for this has been that it comprised the large economies, and 80% they account for 80% of the world economy, or even more, and for that reason it is felt that it is representative. However, of course, the world is made up of a large number of other countries, and while we may not be significant in terms of size, but the actions taken by this group have implications on us, and therefore for greater legitimacy it should have a representation, perhaps from other regions, or some form of grouping, because it's well recognized that to be effective it also has to be of a manageable size. But there has to be maybe entering into strategic alliances, for example, leveraging on what Asia has built up in its surveillance, in managing the risks in the region, and so on, and therefore leveraging on the region for strength in being able to ensuring monetary and financial stability for the region.
Right.